Recognition matters more than the reward. For the same prize, people will really go out of their way if they feel like they're really getting noticed for being good. And relatively small prizes that you or I or anyone might say like, oh, I didn't think that $100 gift card would motivate that. It really can if you build the right culture around it, because it's the chance to be at the top of the list and be recognized for being awesome that ultimately is what's motivating the choices people make.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a guest on here that I have recently met with and explored kind of some of the things that he's doing with his product that I think are super exciting as it relates to kind of field professional engagement. How do we celebrate more, and ultimately, how do we influence our teams to take their service to the next level? So without any further ado, we'd like to welcome the founder of Upsmith, Wyatt Smith. Welcome to the podcast, Wyatt.
Chad, I'm thrilled to be here. Huge fan of what you're building and the community around it. So really excited to share what we're building to help skilled trades companies win and skilled workers thrive.
Absolutely. Why don't you maybe give us a little bit of kind of your background, kind of your story, and then maybe kind of lead into the creation of Upsmith, and then we can get into kind of how it works and what it does and all that good stuff.
I love that. Well, our mission at Upsmith is to help combat America's skilled workforce shortage, and we're building software to help trades companies really be successful at increasing productivity. How do you get more output from your field force? How do you help build a culture of winning and performance culture that's all around getting to the next level of growth? I come to this work from having been a farm kid in Alabama. My dad's a cattle rancher there, and I worked for him as a kid on the farm, and he was a pretty tough boss. So, he built in me an appreciation for the dignity of work and about what builders in our country contribute to really the industrial backbone of what it means to run society. And most of my high school classmates in Alabama were folks in blue collar families who went into the trades or the military, vocational work. I was the only one to go more than 50 miles from home and had a cool set of experiences leading towards a career in the tech sector. Was a Teach for America core member, taught high school history before business school, and then went out to Silicon Valley and have worked in tech for the last several years. Big insight that came out of my time in Silicon Valley was that software can allow people to produce more and can do so in ways that really help create opportunity for folks. But that opportunity has to be directed at the right thing. And so one of the insights that bore for us was, gosh, there's so many low-hanging fruit opportunities to recognize and reward behavior and use that to really gamify what someone's day-to-day experience is like in the trades in a way that help reinforce the choices that they make that create better outcomes for end homeowners and customers that we serve, but in the process, help them produce more and make more money and have a more successful career themselves. So that's what we set up to do with Upsmith, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting. I think, we have a common thread in that our COO is also Teach for America. What do you call them? Teach for America teacher?
Core member. Yeah, that's right.
There you go. All right, core member. I'll get the lingo right. Tell me a little bit about that. So I have learned from him. He's been with us for about 2 years, and I've learned so much about educating, as you just said, incentivizing behavior, different things like that I think sometimes we don't fully embrace within the trades. And I don't think it's like, hey, we're silly or stupid. It's more so we just weren't exposed to like educating people and, kind of all of this stuff. It's always been a very results-based industry. You go out and produce, I'll tell you good job, or maybe I won't, but we'll figure it out. Tell me a little bit about kind of your philosophy, and I think a lot of this is transparent in what Upsmith does, but of the rewarding behaviors piece. And I would assume that a lot of that was probably learned in kind of your Teach for America, experience, and kind of translate that for listeners who may be hearing this for the first time.
Yeah. For those not familiar with Teach for America, the mission of that organization is that one day all kids will have access to an excellent education. And the idea is that if you take people that have got some leadership skills and put them into school environments which are more challenged, you can help drive better performance culture that will ultimately create better outcomes as it relates to educational attainment. And so I was dropped into an inner city public high school in Birmingham, Alabama, that was really challenging. It was an environment that did not have a high performance culture, but it had really good people. I had a great principal, I had great colleagues. The students in my classroom were folks that wanted to be successful, but they didn't really have a lot of priors to point to figure out how to make that work. And so you're teaching a subject. I was a high school history teacher, but the actual job is about building culture. It's about saying, like, here is the expectation for performance, and this is the vision for where we're going as a group. We're now going to really purposely plan how to get there, and we're going to execute in a really efficient way that is focused on continuous improvement to help folks get up the ladder. The thing is, like, when you're in that environment, you don't have money as a lever. You can't pay people for different outcomes. And so your only real lever is around how do you motivate, inspire, incentivize choices people make in a way that rewires the culture in the direction of, we're going to be excellent. And so what you learn very quickly in your training is that all people, regardless of background, race, socioeconomic status, are driven by a common desire for affirmation, a common desire to know that they're good, that their contribution matters, that there's purpose in what they do. And if you can drill in on ways to reinforce that in your culture, you get better outcomes, because human beings will go in the direction of doing the thing that they observe drives validation and affirmation. And so my classroom, it was this incentives system that we created around active citizen points. And you won points every time you engaged in a behavior that was going to create a better outcome, not just for your grade, but also for what we were doing as a group. And what I learned from that is a kid who's really hard up, who's got a lot of really stuff happening in his or her life, will show up fired up to be in your class, to run through a wall for your culture, if they know you care about them, and if they know that they have a chance to really be affirmed at being good. And so that insight led to the idea for the company, which is, like, how could we use technology to really inculcate that into how you source, screen, onboard, coach, develop people in the trades? Because that's a really fundamental thing for humans to seek out.
That's so great. Yeah, we've been kind of on I call it a crusade, but just a really intentional focus on our managers having one-on-one conversations with field professionals. I think the one thing that in the trades we have to overcome is that it would be different, I think, if we were all in a classroom and you could, be patting people on the back and telling them great job and all of this stuff, but our field professionals go out in their own truck and are by themselves and, are kind of on an island. And so to me, we have to work even harder. And I think Upsmith helps with this, of being able to create those affirmations for behaviors that are going to lead to their success. And also focusing on the process too. Like, let's not focus on the result that you got last week. Let's focus on what behaviors you're seeing success with, which ones you're struggling with. Is it handling objections? Is it presenting? Is it, whatever it may be? We've got to sit down and have those conversations, or else they're not ever going to know that we care. And it's, I always use the example of, with my wife, I can be like, well, I'm doing all these things, but like, if I don't show her that I care, like, she knows it, that's kind of the vow we took when we got married. But like, if I don't show her day in and day out, well, then that message can get lost, and then, things go sideways. What have you guys tried to do with Upsmith that kind of, I guess, I look at it as kind of supporting a manager or field supervisor or something like that, with creating something that shows in real time on a day-to-day basis, like that, hey, your behaviors are being rewarded, we're seeing what you're doing, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I love the allusion to marriage. It's a you have to show up, right? It's more than words, it's actions. And I think that I'd love to share just an example of an application of our software that helps to illustrate that too, because it'll make it easier, I think, for people listening to get a visual in their mind. You talked a little bit, Chad, about cultural expectations you have for your managers and how they coach and develop the field techs inside your company. That's awesome. But it's really hard to do well. It's hard to do well because people are out in the trucks away from their manager day to day. They're encountering a bunch of really dynamic situations with homeowners. And you can train them to the expectation, but then when first contact with the field happens, you're now relying on them to make a set of choices. What we're very focused on at Upsmith is about reinforcing the choices that you hope that they make relative to what you know to be best practice, and doing it in a way that it builds now a competitive, positive culture around everyone wanting to do that, because it's one of the ways you get recognized inside your company. We do this through gamification. So we are automating recognition and rewards using software to ultimately nudge people in the direction of the things that you hope to see them do each time. A great example that's true for lots of service companies is how many high quality options do you present to a homeowner after having completed an inspection or diagnosing an issue that they're facing in their home? Everybody will tell you, hey, you need a good, better, best package. You need to really think through how to educate the customer. When we actually look at the data and we pull Service Titan records as an example, we'll see that only 20% of the time is a company actually engaging in 3 or more options assigned to a ticket. It's not because they don't think it's important. It's because the person has now showed up in the house and stuff's happened. The homeowner has been very directed and said, I want you to fix the clogged drain. Or, gosh, it's an elderly lady. She's on a fixed income. Do we want to suggest something that costs $4,000 when she was expecting us to fix something for $400? These types of things will trip people up. And the software is meant to reinforce the input and say, well, look, maybe she's not in the position to make that decision today, but giving her the knowledge and leaving that behind for her so that she and people that she trusts can lead on, do we do that or not in the future, is so important to the ultimate data record about that home, or about when we go serve that person in the future with a special promotion. We need to know that. And so we're rewarding the technician for having created the 3 options for that homeowner. And we're doing that by querying the Service Titan record, saying, yep, there's 3 options on the estimate. We're now going to send points to that technician that's going to power a leaderboard. It's going to help that person get reinforcement that they did the right thing, no matter what happened downstream with the sale. Because we know that if we can consistently deliver against the best practice, we're going to get higher close rates. We're going to see higher average tickets. And that over time, it's going to pull us in the direction of the KPI output that we care most about. And so we tried this with people all over the country. One case study that we have on our website that I'm always excited to talk about is with Shaw Heating and Cooling in Iowa. And they ran this across teams of HVAC service techs in multiple cities and had a 14% increase in the rate of options that were offered to homeowners, correlating with a 14% increase in revenue per booked job in less than 8 weeks. Less than 8 weeks. But it was because it was reinforcing things that their HVAC service manager wanted to see and was already coaching people to. We, Upsmith, were his partner to help make sure that happened in a way that got reinforced.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example. And it also speaks to, what we talked about earlier. We're so dialed in on, what's your average ticket, what's your conversion rate, so on and so forth. And we forget about all of the things, all of the behaviors that ultimately lead to that result. I always joke of, a terrible one-on-one meeting would be like, your conversion's low, get it up, do better. Okay, great. Let's dive into what's actually affecting conversion rate, what's actually affecting average ticket. What are all the things that you can control in a service call, to your point, that could go a million different directions? Every homeowner is unique, and they may, take you off your game and, this didn't play out just like we practiced, and so on and so forth. But keeping in mind, what are all of those things that you can control, I think is critical. Take me through another example. Use the ones about options. I think that's a great one, because what can a technician control? They can control the high quality options that they present to a homeowner. 100%. They can do it on every call. It can be done. Tell me, maybe give me some more examples or case studies just so listeners have an idea of what could this help with? Because I think there may be a segment of listeners who are like, I could just use this and we'll just reward the highest revenue generating tech. It's like, well, you could, but is that really going to get us to increasing performance?
So we've seen success applying gamification to all sorts of behaviors across all sorts of functions. Let's talk about success in sharing a membership plan with a homeowner. And a number of folks said, gosh, I have a strategic goal of getting my memberships up, but there's all sorts of things I'm trying to accomplish. How do I think this through? We have found a lot of success if you can incentivize membership plans, even in the very first call with a CSR. You're not necessarily expecting the person to opt in on that first call, but because they now have heard about the opportunity, they're like thinking about it. They've decided, okay, well, if this service call goes well and the person's, respectful and educates me on what I need to think about, and like I feel good vibes with them, I'm open to that. I would like that person to come back. And so the service tech is now teed up to be successful at converting the person to the membership in a day or two once they're in front of them in their home, because you were incentivizing the CSR to consider bringing it up on the first call. And we can track and reward that for CSRs or dispatchers or people that are upstream of the actual service visit. We've seen lots of success with competitions around 5-star Google reviews. So independently of what happened, did you leave someone with the type of customer experience that led them to say, I love those guys. I trust them. They were knowledgeable. They respected my house. They were not insufficiently deferential to me. That matters a ton. And you can see people then increase the rate at which 5-star Google reviews show up, because it's one of the things they know that they're competing with their teammates to be able to drive. Ultimately, people respond to things you measure. And so if you can build process that will repeatedly reinforce expectations around the behaviors you want to see, we've seen a lot of success with those metrics popping up. And that's not a novel insight, right? That's the thing that most people would say to be true, but it's really difficult to get right if you're not using software to do it, because it's not the number one thing you as a manager are responsible for each day. And so the tracking ultimately falls off, the reinforcement ultimately falls off. And then paradoxically, this thing that was a really great thing you were doing, a contest to drive a certain behavior, has the opposite impact, where people feel frustrated that you didn't follow through. And so we see ourselves as a partner to help companies reinforce the things they want to see and follow through with them.
Perfect. What's, I know we had a call, it's been maybe a couple of weeks ago at this point, about just kind of learning about the software. I guess maybe give listeners kind of an idea of, it seems pretty simple to set up. Kind of walk me through what that looks like, so that if I'm a listener and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting, like what's that look like? Is this a huge lift on my part? Am I having to implement this thing? What does that look like from, if I say, yeah, this seems like something good, what's that kind of look like for people?
We've got a great team, and we're really excited to make this really easy for anybody that is wanting to work with us. We serve all types of skilled trades businesses. And so there's a slightly different onboarding depending upon which field service management platform you use or how those worked. But for the purposes of an example, I'll share what we discussed with your team and we would do for other people that are currently using ServiceTitan as their field service management platform. We are a ServiceTitan partner, so we exist inside the technology marketplace. They have been really great to work with at thinking through how we help expand value for the mutual customers that we serve. So it's super simple. You hand us a tenant ID for your ServiceTitan instance. We go and activate that ID inside our app, and whoever is your ServiceTitan IT manager goes and enables it on your side. At that point, we have access to the APIs to be able to show you the impact of whatever behaviors you're wanting to track and how they're showing up today. And so our team then can preload your roster, we can preload the behavior reward trigger, and we can show you, if you can move this input metric, what the likely outcome would be as it relates to the pull through on value. You then help us by either selecting one of our templates of competitions we've seen other people have success with, or designing your own. And we can automate off any type of report that is generated in Titan. And then within 90 minutes, we're ready to launch. We find that it's really important to have alignment with the GM and the service manager for whichever groups you want to bring it to. And so we'll do a asynchronous call or a synchronous call with them to walk through how it works. But you just assign a budget, and the budget is tied to helping give people recognition rewards for experiences, for tools, for things that will help drive a lot of fun, exciting culture. And then the big thing is, once we start, we're showing quick wins. We're messaging people through the application interface to say like, hey, you're a killer. You're really knocking it out of the park today. Let's keep going. And we found that one of the ways to make it really thrive is like, once you're a couple of weeks into a 1-month competition, you can drill new opportunities in for people that are not at the top, which keep them super engaged and motivated, because there's always something in it for them on the next activity as well. And it helps us then drive a pretty quick outcome for all the people that we serve.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. You had some insight on I guess sizing the reward to the contest and how that can be impactful. Cause I think we've all went through this. It's like, oh, well, we'll just give them this and that looks good. And then everybody's like, not really bought into that. Like, what does that mean? Like, what's kind of the philosophy behind kind of sizing the reward for whatever the contest may be?
Our general philosophy is to think about it in the context of impact. So for every $100 of impact to your business, we benchmark around $2 of incentive tied to motivating that impact. And so if we were to think through what would the lift be if you could increase conversion rate by 5% across all of your field techs, and that number comes out to something on the order of $200,000 of revenue increase for the period. Well, then that would drive the budget setting process for us to say, okay, that's cool. A $4,000 incentive pool is going to help drive the right amount of pickup to be able to create that lift. And so the way we would think about that would be to say, okay, well let's drill into like what types of experiences are super motivating to people. And they're things that like you'd be really excited to pursue, but you might not be able to justify coming out of your paycheck to go to Disneyland with your kids or rent out a Topgolf bay for a weekend with some of your friends. And so we can help create some of those elements. But what we found, Chad, is like the recognition matters more than the reward. For the same prize, people will really go out of their way if they feel like they're really getting noticed for being good. And relatively small prizes that you or I or anyone might say like, oh, I didn't think that a $100 gift card would motivate that. It really can if you build the right culture around it, because it's the chance to be at the top of the list and be recognized for being awesome that ultimately is what's motivating the choices people make.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because, I think we've all probably been guilty of, hey, yeah, we're going to do this month-long contest and there's a $500 gift card, or even if the prize does fit, it's that ongoing recognition of, hey, you're doing the right things. Hey, you're doing the right things. And yeah, you may not win it. There may be someone that does it, but that simple kind of recognition on a daily basis of I'm actually moving in the right direction is ultimately what we know is going to improve. Is you got to be consistent with it. You got to do it day in and day out. It's not like hey, I'm going to really try for this today and then tomorrow maybe not, and so on and so forth.
Another thing we've seen be successful is to think through like other ways that you can then create tiered-based competition. So I'm competing against someone who's kind of in my same weight class as opposed to the hero who's always at the top of the close rate list. And there's something very motivating about saying, hey, I'm a rookie, and here's my expectation for where I want to get in the future, but I get a chance to get some wins on the board early by competing with other people that are at my level of competency and experience. So it's something we always encourage people to think about.
Yeah, I like that idea, especially when you have a number of technicians. There's always the top dogs who are going to do it. And I think that could be demotivating to somebody like, oh, I'm never going to beat him. He does this week in, week out.
And one other idea that helps to address that is to think about reward systems that are lottery-based as opposed to winner-take-all models. And what I mean by that is, I'm winning points. The points are going to go into a drawing for the thing. The top dog might have 10 times more chances to win than I do because he or she has been driving a lot of wins, but I definitely have a shot. And so my motivation for the incremental behavior is actually quite high because I'm getting more balls into the spinner. And we've seen that work pretty well too.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot. We've done a couple of things like that where, yeah, the more you do it, you get tickets and, you got more tickets in the pot and, everybody has a chance at winning, but it seems to make it a little bit more fair, I guess, to a certain degree.
And that can be tough to do if you have actual tickets, because you might end up with several thousands of them. We digitize the whole experience so that those tickets are virtual tickets and you get the same experience of seeing the raffle go, but the administration of it is way more straightforward.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit as it relates to that. Tell me a little bit more about the platform. Like if I'm a field professional, what can I expect to see with this? If my company decides to utilize this product, what's the technician experience look like?
It's really important to us to have deep empathy for what that person's day-to-day is like. And our learning is that they've got a lot of stuff on their plate. We don't need to be adding new things to that list. So there's nothing that we ask them to do that goes beyond their existing workflow. We want them to focus on serving people really well. And then our software works in the background to be able to surface the things that they did and then push those back out to them. So there's no change in your process. You go through the home inspection, you talk through the options with the homeowner, they select those options. You're using your existing field service management platform to do that. We're pulling the data from the back end, and then we're pushing either text messages or notifications through our web app to you to say, Chad, you're a hero. You just nailed this customer visit. Excellent work. Here's the outcome of that. When you click into that link, it takes you back to a leaderboard. You can see how you're doing, your history, things you've earned points on. But our goal there is to, again, make that pretty engaging, is to replicate the group text with the fire emojis and the GIFs that are going out across the course of a day. So you can really feed that performance culture that you want to see for your team. But our goal is, this is all additive to the types of strategies you're already deploying as a world-class service company. And for the field tech, this is meant to be a real motivation and boost to help them do even more.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. I think when I thought through the product, it was like, oh, this is a great way. Like, I think along with the field professional, the manager's got a lot on his plate too. And you're like, well, constantly tell your people, great job and all of this stuff. And it's like, I would, but I'm out on a job helping somebody right now. I didn't see that, Larry gave 6 options and did a fantastic job. And I'd love to congratulate him. It's not like I don't want to praise him. I'd love to, but, how do I manage that? I guess, what's it look like from the manager's seat? How much extra work is it on them? Or is this kind of like their assistant manager when it comes to rewarding behavior?
Yeah. Is there assistant manager if that person never slept and was responsive every time something happened? Right?
Yeah.
So we try to design this manager experience so that it's informing a view of what's happening across your team. And you can see, based on the competitions that I'm running, here's the output that's being created from that. And then within that, I can drill in and say, this individual is the highest performer this week. I'm going to really make a point of screenshotting that and sending it to everybody to celebrate them. Hey, this person's really struggling. They've had a hard time catching up. I'm going to bring this up in our one-on-one, and I'm going to ask what's going on, because I now have a signal that there's something that's off on the input, not just their ticket size, not just their close rate. We also are wanting to be able to empower the manager to think through, okay, this really worked well. I now want to try this in this spot. Because what we found is GMs will say, holy cow, this was awesome. Could you help my call center? Could you help my dispatchers? Could you help my install team? And so we designed this to be very flexible, such that the manager can now start pointing this at other behaviors and things that he or she would want to prioritize. So that if we're 2 weeks before the end of the month and the KPIs are not tracking to meeting plan, you can deploy this as a way to help them catch up and hit the number that you're really driving to, because you want to do it in a way that's going to help create the outcome that will make everybody better.
I know with any software, there's always the, what's the new and exciting thing that you guys are working on right now? I guess maybe if you can let listeners in on maybe kind of some of the things that are coming down the pipe that you're excited about with the software, and maybe kind of that next level of things that may, pique people's interest.
Yeah, I love the question. Thanks for asking it. So what we've learned now that we've been serving lots of people across the country is that the insight about where people are and how they're doing can create social proof that can lead to more opportunities. And I'm thinking about how to help companies solve the lead generation challenge that everybody's facing when they're thinking about how to grow. And so what's really cool is to think about a service tech who is doing an excellent job and now has a lot of 5-star reviews, has a lot of very happy customers. And we want to help that person really, really thrive and be able to continue growing, continue generating more opportunities for the company, and in the process, earning more himself or herself. And so we're working on a series of applications using AI to then take that record and help reach out to more people in that area, and then use that as a way to get new leads for the company and more shots on goal for the technician that we think can help feed a lot of mutual wins. Customers better off, companies better off, technicians better off, and we can help support that in the background.
That's awesome. So is this somewhat like a kind of a cross-selling, internal referral? How are you guys thinking about that?
The place that we see the most opportunity is around helping to get in front of people that have already opted in, that are already in your CRM, that have maybe gotten a visit 6 months ago with a recommended service that they passed on, and we can help maybe initiate outreach to those people to offer a chance to have this technician that they already trust to swing by while he's near the neighborhood. And so we're focusing on that problem first, but then with a goal towards expanding based on the feedback that we get from the people we're serving.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that there could be one of the things we're looking at right now is, I think we see it at some of our smaller branches as they're really good at kind of passing off work from trade to trade, mainly because it's a smaller group. They all know each other and they know, hey, Billy needs more work and we've been struggling for electrical leads. So I'm going to see if there's, any opportunity that the customer needs some electrical work done, or maybe they haven't even thought about it or whatever it may be. But it gets more difficult in the bigger branches where departments are more siloed. They may not know everybody, so on and so forth. And one of the things is, how do we make it really easy for that technician to refer work within the system? Because typically, like you said, they've got so much stuff on their plate on a daily basis. It's like, not that they don't want to help out the customer, but it's like, do you guys do electrical panels? Well, yeah, I know we do, but like, just call the office and see if they'll help you out. And, I get it, right? It's like, I'm in the middle of doing all of this work. So I think that's an interesting piece there where like something like this could promote kind of pushing work to other departments.
So the test we have run with success is to focus competitions around tech-generated leads. So you got a service technician in the field, he or she's enrolled in a contest on the number of TGLs, a lot of companies call them, that you can create. And you can generate a tech-generated lead for all sorts of cross-selling opportunities and cross-services. It oftentimes it's thought about in the context of system replacements, which are obviously high value, but could be true for duct cleanings, could be true for a plumbing inspection, could be true for any type of work that you can tag and tighten as being handed to someone else in that specific example. And we can automate reports and prizes for that.
That's awesome. My wheels are turning, because that's one thing that I think, with lead costs getting increasingly more expensive, it's like, how do we farm the people that already know, like, and trust us and make sure that they're aware? And I've had customers for years. I didn't realize you did plumbing. We've been doing it for 10 years almost.
Long time.
Yeah,
long
exactly.
Time.
So glad we could help.
What are you seeing right now, Chad, as it relates to lead costs through social optimization? What's out there?
Yeah, I think, the lead costs, it's pretty easy to see are going up. I think with, private equities, they've been here for a minute, but, they're big on spending all of their money digitally, which we know is our biggest ROI is digital, but the cost of it, the ROI keeps getting chopped because there's so much money being pumped into that particular lead source, which has got us thinking about, okay, we've got this big customer list. How do we do better with what we already have? Getting more efficient, different stuff like that. So I may not have to go buy 4 more leads to make sure that this branch is good for tomorrow if I can generate them within my customer base, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than having to go get a brand new customer or pumping money into making sure that my customer base knows that we provide this service, that service, and another service type thing.
Yep. Rough justice, what does it cost to acquire a new customer using SEO, AdWords right now?
Yeah, it varies on trade line for sure. So to generate a new install lead, we've seen prices of upwards of $300 a lead on an install replacement. Service leads, obviously less because there's more of them and the ticket's lower. And so people aren't willing to spend on those things. But yeah, it's something we're monitoring really close. It's like, well, we can keep spending or we can get more efficient for sure.
It is a challenge I'm sure a lot of your listeners are wrestling with too. So it's a big opportunity for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when you look at, if I've only got X amount of dollars to spend, how am I going to bring in, and I need to grow, so I need to bring in more customers. How do I do that most efficiently? And I think it goes back a lot of when you're looking at from a marketing perspective is making sure that you're measuring every lead source and you know exactly what it costs to do that. Because I know just this year, we've taken money out of certain sources, deployed it in other ones, trying to figure out what's the best. And hey, this lead source used to perform a year ago, but today it doesn't perform. And I think the most important thing, and I think it goes with right along with what you guys are trying to doing, is tracking everything is critical in trying to understand where are we going to place dollars to make this work.
That's right. It's so important. And it's a very competitive world right now. And so helping people build the performance culture that they want to see so that they can build the right engine internally is a big focus for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too, if you look at, some people maybe look at like, I can't remember what the example was, but $4,000 to increase $200,000 or whatever the example was. It's like looking at this as these prizes are a marketing expense. Essentially, it cost you $4,000 to produce this much in revenue. Does that equate to another lead source? This is, to me, kind of a lead source, if you will. It's just maximizing each lead that you're currently running.
That's exactly right. Which they're all expensive to get. And so by virtue of like really leaning into the ones you have and building a service culture of excellence around that, we find that that's going to compound over time in the best way possible, because your referrals that come from your existing customers are the best source of how you grow.
Absolutely. Well, Wyatt, I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, kind of explaining what Upsmith is about and what you guys are doing. I think it's a super unique tool that, anybody can find value in if you put the time and effort into building it out right, making sure that everybody's on the same page with it. I just think it's massively important. I guess as we close out here, is there anything you would leave listeners with as far as, whether it's with Upsmith or just kind of what you're seeing in the industry as a whole that people should be aware of or focused on?
Yeah, I'd say if you're out there and you're looking to grow your business and you want to build a great performance culture, it's really challenging. And you're not alone in trying to navigate that challenge, because a lot of your peers across the industry are navigating it too. The way to win is by having really clear expectations for what you want to have happen and then working backwards from them. That's true in lots of things in life, but it's definitely true for this one. And so I would say like an invitation, like come to upsmith.com, check out some of the case studies of folks we've worked with, think about some of the ways that you could really set a big goal for growth in 2025 and beyond. And then we'd love to talk to you about things we've seen work and ways that we could help you get started in doing it. It'd be a real joy to serve more people that are listening to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, Wyatt, again, thank you so much. Listeners, definitely check out Upsmith and see what it may be able to do for your business. But just really appreciate the time, Wyatt.
Likewise, Chad, I love what you're building. A huge believer in the culture that you're leading, not just for your own company, but for the industry as a whole. So thanks for inviting me aboard.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.